Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Mid-Table Crisis with me, Simon Cross.
And me, Tom Patrick.
We've been away for a while for various reasons. One of us has been in another continent. One of us had his laptop unfortunately break and had to buy a new one at great expense. But of course, when it's concerned with you listeners, there's no expense spared. We're striving to live the best that we can and often do on a daily basis. So, what's caught your eye in the last few weeks, Tom? I know obviously you were across the pond, as it were, but I take it you kept your finger on the pulse no matter what.
Oh, I kept my finger right on that pulse. But just a quick word before we move over to soccer. I did see a really, really good game of American football, and having soaked in the atmosphere and all the fun of it, I would encourage anyone who maybe is thinking about getting into American football, definitely give it a try. It's a lot of fun, and it's a really quite interesting game as well once you understand what's going on. But yeah, there's quite a few things that caught my eye, and I always keep an eye out for news to do with Bolton, and I've got to say that is something that's a little bit surprising for me. I mean, what do you think about Bolton's managerial changes?
Our shift over. Well, I've been trying to duck the question in terms of our poor start because it was a bit of a cowardly move on my part, but we just haven't got out of the blocks, ultimately, and Dougie Freeman's paid the price for it. We've got a new man at the helm. We've got Neil Lennon. I didn't expect it to be him. I'll be brutally honest. Knowing the type of manager we're getting, the type of player we're getting at the moment because of our money troubles, when Freeman got sacked, I was thinking it's going to be Phil Brown. It's going to be Phil Brown. It's going to be Phil Brown. I know it. Deep in my heart, it's going to be Phil Brown. And thankfully, it's not. Nothing against Phil. Phil will do a job for you. Lennon's an interesting choice, and I'm quite excited by the prospect.
Mm-hmm.
Because our friend texted me, it's like, yeah, he's not proven the English league, but yeah, he's got Champions League experience. He knows how to win. Admittedly, he had a good team to win with.
Yeah.
Winning, as much as it is a talent, it's a state of mind as well.
Definitely, I'd say it's probably more of a state of mind than anything else. I think that's been proven by the Man United teams after and during the reigns of Sir Alex Ferguson. Same players pretty much, but just not quite having that mentality.
Yeah, I was in Martin O'Neill at Leicester's a good example as well, and Aston Villa. He made good players great by instilling that mentality of what you can achieve. A little bit of the man motivated, the psychology behind the beautiful game that we all know and love. And whether Lennon has that or whether Lennon inherited that, we will find out shortly. I'm liking to think it's the former, for obvious reasons, especially because we are in dire straits, and the parachute payments are, if not already, have about dried up. So we're now relying on ourselves to get ourselves out of this mess. I mean, we've had to change sponsor for our stadium to get some money in because Reebok weren't going to touch us anymore. So we're now in the Macron Stadium that we're playing of. Freeman towards the end, I think you could tell he knew he was going to go. Because each week a different formation, each week a different team. There was no consistency. I couldn't tell you what his plan was.
I think he was just trying to find something that worked, but nothing really worked at that point. It's a bit like on Football Manager when you it's just not clicking, so you switch it all up, and then you switch it all up again, and you switch it all up again, and you just can't. You can't get the pieces of jigsaw to fit together.
If you're playing a different system every week, what do you prepare for as a player? I'm not saying that players should be so tactically inflexible they should only know and play one system, but you've got to have a core ideal. You've got to have a focus point to work from and outwards with. And it just looked like it was lacking towards the end at Bolton under the Freeman's reign. So that's why we've now got Lennon in. As I say, I am surprised. I am still trying to get my head around the fact it is Lennon and it's not someone like Phil Brown. So because Lennon can't have been cheap. So we seem to have committed with this, and I hope we give him the ball and run with it. And it's the financial backing that we're going to have to look in and see if he does get that as well. Because if he doesn't get the financial backing, then what's the point? But I do appreciate the dark financial situation we're in, so it's that fine line that I tread now.
I was going to say, surely that the well is dry, because you've still got £150 million in debt, so where is this money coming from, you know?
We built a stadium we thought we could finance, and ultimately we can't because we didn't stay in the league. We didn't stay in the league befitting the stadium we built.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened with Coventry. And while
no offence, but you never really recovered from that.
Well, we haven't yet, certainly. It's been, the decline's been happening for probably 10 years or more.
I mean, you weren't even there for such a long time because of the situation that we're in, but we've covered that in some detail on previous podcasts. So, where do I think, to get to the point, like, we talked about the past, and my surprise of guessing Lennon. Where do I think Lennon will get us? Is a good point to, like, move forward to, I think. I personally think we'll survive this season. We'll get mid-table-ish. The top half I'd love. I shouldn't have to say that, because the season we went down, we were like joint favourites to go straight back up. And I thought that was a little bit like too generous to ourselves. And if you look, there's no one there that would take us to the promised land. There's one or two players that you can see us getting close with, but no one that could definitively say that's the one that's going to carry us to the promised land. There's no Danny Ings. There's no Nugent and Vardy combination. There's no, for QPR, there's no Zamora or Johnson or, just there's no mercenary factor for QPR. Yeah. That's just me getting a subtle dig in. But you get where I'm coming from. There's no wow factor. Derby have a wow factor.
Yeah.
The way they're playing.
They've got some great players as well. Will Hughes is amazing
as well. Yeah, they've signed Jack Butland on loan, and he's incredible. So they've got coverage and depth in all the positions they need to. So they're doing brilliant. I think they're the ones to watch ultimately. But we don't have that.
Yeah,
we're a long way from having that. Hopefully we can build that under Lennon and his contacts. But it's going to take time. And I think, as a Bolton fan now, I'm going to have to accept we're a championship team for the next 3 to 4 years, at least.
Yeah, as long as you can accept that and that happens, then it's alright. I mean, the worry would be with money leaking out the club and everyone knowing about that, it makes it difficult to attract staff and players. So, you don't want it to be that no one really wants to go there. I mean, it was.
We've got to make it a lucrative option, and that financially, that's not the thing we can do. One of the reasons I think Lennon was hired is because of that, because he can bring players he's associated with to the club. Perhaps that's, I think, some of the thinking behind that, more than the fact that not saying he's not a good coach, but I think that's one of the deciding factors behind his particular appointment, and why we didn't end up with the cheap option, which we've been known to do sometimes in panic. When we've panicked, we've just took the easy money-saving option, which perhaps we needed to do, but it's not something you'd like to admit as a fan of a club, that you're doing this because it's saving money. At this time round, no, we just wanted to stable the ship and clear out some dead wood. Mm. So it's hard. It's tough to know what to expect. Stability, we'll take that. Build from that.
It was good to get off to a winning start from there. Yeah, I'd say so. Oh, yeah.
And it's a bit weird as a result that we've kind of put a manager to the sword in a sense. Because we beat Birmingham, and Birmingham sacked their manager. So I think they saw that we reshuffled our backroom staff. That game was the final nail in his coffin. I think even if Freeman was in charge, I think that game was going to be the final nail in his coffin. He lost it, and now they've shuffled as well as we have shuffled. So I think we've started the carousel effect. I mean, I don't know who's going to take over at Birmingham. I don't think it is Freeman. They'll pick. Perhaps they will pick a Phil Brown or someone like that at Birmingham. I don't know. I don't know if there are any other former pros who did play at Birmingham that would like to take the job. Like whether they've got a local player connection or whether they will just look for a skilled coach. I mean, Steve Clark's free, and he did West Brom, so he was based in the area. Like he sort of knows the area. He knows the grassroots scouting. If you're looking for a long-term plan, and he was a damn fine coach. Let's not forget.
Yeah, I think Mourinho tipped him for good things in the future, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's a very good shout, to be honest. But it's not that attractive a prospect anymore, I don't think, as well. I mean, there's potential there at Birmingham City, but with the whole Carson Young going to jail thing and with them doing so bad and barely escaping relegation to Tier 3 of English football, it's a much different proposition to what it would be this time last year.
Yeah, even this time last year. I mean, especially if you go back a couple of seasons ago, the League Cup, they've won the League Cup in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Admittedly, it was a strange game, the final, but...
Yeah, I mean, was it Zigic or was it Martins who scored the winner?
Martins who scored that bizarre goal when there was just a massive cock-up in the Arsenal back line.
Okay. Yeah.
But that was still within the deepest grips of their white line fever, and when they couldn't get a trophy. They've since dispelled that, but still got off to a sluggish start in the Premier League. But that's by the by, when we're talking about the Championship and Bolton and Birmingham at the moment. And we are digging in, like Bolton, and I think we will be okay. And I think Birmingham comes down to how long it takes to find a replacement. We sacked our manager just before an international break, which was if you're going to do it mid-season, do it then.
Yeah.
Don't do it when the games are all stacking up. We got our guy in, and he had a week with the team before our first game. I don't think that will happen at Birmingham. I don't know who they could get. Clark maybe, but then you got to remember he's a former West Brom manager, and I don't think the fans would like that. Look at McLeish Villa.
Well, yeah, I mean the McLeish thing was I'd say that's 10 times as bad, so they don't really care that much. And I also think that Steve Clark's probably a better manager than McLeish, so that's just me. As I say, it's a bit like it does happen when Cardiff let go of Malky Mackay, when Leeds have been burning through managers. You've got to think, what does that show to, what is that telling prospective managers about the club? Would that be the kind of club you want to manage, So you've got to worry about what message it sends out. I mean, with Lee Clark, I think he was lucky to cling on.
For as long as he did.
But still, yeah, I mean, Birmingham City is a bit of a poison chalice these days, I'd say. I mean, obviously, someone could go in and do really well. It's a big football city, and there's a lot of support there, but a lot of work needs to be done. A lot of work. They've just been allowed to...
fester and rot.
Yeah, there's a lot of dead wood there.
Well, I mean, as I say, I don't like wishing ill on any club, apart from one in particular. But it was so good and now it's not, but I'm as a Bolton fan now, I'm in that position where I can't really be that nice about this. Until I know I'm clear, I can't be nice about this. I've got to sort of revel in the fact that it's happening there after it's happened to us.
I was going to say, yeah. Bolton.
I was going to say, yeah, the relegation fight does strange things to a man. It makes his whole ethics and coding change from a footballing perspective.
Rolling in a pit of schadenfreude, weren't you?
I wouldn't call it schadenfreude, I'd call it comfort. Knowing that someone else is going through what you've just gone through.
Yeah. which is also why you subjected. That's a sentence that I cannot even in my mind, I can't say that. Yeah, we'll cut that. Right.
But I was going to say, like, knowing exactly where you stand compared to other clubs is something I'm experiencing a little bit now with Bolton compared to Birmingham. And it's something that all football fans are experiencing right now, at least in certain aspects, with the annual price of football survey having recently been released.
Yeah, and it's pretty crazy. I mean, admittedly, some of this information is a little bit. It doesn't always tell the true story, but I mean, some of the numbers that are being thrown around are fairly crazy. I mean, do you want to take us through a few of them, Simon?
Well, there was a couple I was flicking through. I mean, I don't want to be like too much of a Premier League like fanboy, but like that is the league that everyone looks to. And the fact that the most expensive season ticket at the most expensive club is Arsenal's, and it's like £2,000. Well, £2,013. Let's not forget. Whereas conversely, Swansea's most expensive season ticket. West Brom's most expensive season ticket is £449, which is like literally a quarter of the price. I mean, not literally, but near enough a quarter of the price, just under. It makes you think, like, what world are we living in? What's the structure? What's the plan? Like, how do you justify £2,000 on the season ticket? Like, maybe if you've got more disposable income. I mean, you and I, we're not blessed with great levels of that at the moment. Let's just face reality. On the season ticket, it's an incredible ask, especially when there was one stat I loved. It was like if you took the most expensive pie in the 92 games, in 92 teams of the Football League tier, and you bought that every home game you attended, you'd have spent the equivalent of the cheapest Barcelona season ticket. And that says volumes.
Yeah, I mean, with Spain and Germany, both of them, are very, very good when it comes to season ticket prices and match prices. I think in the UK, the thing is, there's that many people that don't really know that much about football, and B, have far too much money to spend, that you can pretty much put your prices up to whatever you want, and you'll sell thousands.
I think it does come down to the brand of the club, and it's a word you often hear me say when I'm playing devil's advocate on a topic, especially when it comes to finance. But Arsenal as a brand, let's face it, are attractive football, have been for years. Whereas West Brom, you're not going to go there thinking, well, I'm going to get and this isn't a slight against West Brom, but it's just the way they're perceived. And let's be honest here. You're not going to look at a West Brom ticket and think, well, I'm guaranteed entertainment. Whereas people who look at an Arsenal ticket are more likely to think that, if you see where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
So, as I say, not a dig against West Brom. I'm not. Several members of my family are West Brom supporters. I wouldn't dare do that. But they don't scream entertainment to the casual fan in the same way that Arsenal do. I mean, entertainment comes in different forms. It can come from a beautiful pass or a beautiful through ball, or it can come from that sheer relief you get at the final whistle after holding on to a 2-1 home win. Like, it's all relative, is entertainment in football, which is why it's hard to price. However, it's hard to put a price on any form of entertainment, but everyone knows their limits. Like, a friend of mine was looking at Kings of Leon tickets. When he heard of like £70 for some of the seats he was looking at, he backed away. If I was looking at a season ticket and I heard £2,000, I'd back away. It's just myself on that one.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It is tough.
One thing I will say as well, one of the pies was very expensive. I remember it was the most expensive pie. I'm not sure where it was. It was somewhere like Preston or somewhere northern. And I did read.
think it's Kidderminster. I am just quickly scrolling through.
Oh, actually, no, it might have been Kidderminster, actually, so that would not be...
Kidderminster's is £4.50, so I think it was that one.
Well, yeah, apparently it was basically a meal in itself. So, yeah, sometimes some things are more worthy than others.
Yeah, you do get what you pay for in some... Like, that principle does apply to an extent. I don't think it 100% applies to football, though.
Definitely not, definitely. Thing is with football, it's not like when you're going to go see a film, you kind of know what's going to happen. The script's already been written.
Yeah, you get reviews, like conclusive reviews, and you know it's going to be the same thing they saw is the same thing that you're going to see.
Yeah. Whereas at a football game, the joy of it is, of course, that anything can happen. But the problem with
Arsenal decimate a team 5-1 one week, and then you could go the next week and see them struggle to get a point against Hull. And last week, the current weekend we're on.
Yeah. So you've got to be...
I mean, I'm not wanting to pick on Arsenal specifically. A lot of clubs are guilty of overcharging. It's just that you are the most expensive. So I am the example.
Arsenal are definitely one of the worst, and they always have been. So,
but then again, they're not in debt.
Mm-hmm.
So are they doing what should be being done for a big club, as opposed to relying on Russians or sheikhs? Who knows?
Aren't they part owned by a Russian?
Part owned, yeah, but have you seen their books? Their books are in a lot better shape than some other clubs. I'm not saying I've had a deep look, but even from the outside, you can see that if one of their owners left, they would be all right.
Yeah.
If you could tell me what happened with Abramovich left Chelsea, I don't know why it took me so long to think of that one. But if Abramovich left Chelsea, you could have a pretty good indicator that what happened wouldn't be good.
Yeah.
But of course, I suppose with Arsenal, we do have to factor in the fact that it is London pricing, and as much as I hate to say it, things in capitals cost more. That's just fact. So that's true of London. That's true of Rome. It's true of Paris. Probably true of Madrid. I've not been to that one, but as I say, things in capitals just cost more.
Yeah.
That's been the case. Berlin, Moscow, everywhere. Amsterdam's the exception, because that is the capital of Holland, isn't it?
It is. But I don't know. I'm sure Amsterdam still has its expensive parts. I'm sure if anyone knows that, it's you, Simon. I mean, I don't want to go into detail,
but not then yet. On the to-do list.
That's funny, because I remember having to provide you with an alibi, and you told me in no uncertain terms that you were actually in Amsterdam, whereas I have to say you were outside Manor Park School in the bushes. But, I mean, let's not go into that.
You got around, by the way. Cool.
The price of...
I mean, obviously we've talked about Bolton a bit, and of course you're a Coventry fan, so if we just compare our prices, I mean, my cheapest match day ticket is for £23. Yours weighs in at 20. So even though you're a tier lower, you're not too far away. And your most expensive is £27. So you've got a good tight range, which I like a good tight range. The fact that,
You certainly do. Thing is as well though, mate, what you've got to think is that Coventry still, in some ways, act like they are a Premier League team, not a Premier League team, but at least a Championship team. So it's quite, we're a little bit of an anomaly in that we're going to be a bit more expensive than some other clubs, especially in League One.
They were in League One. It's the same principle, but you know what I mean? Clubs with the structure and the fan base will charge a bit more.
Yeah, we've got a bit more of a structure and we've got a bit more of a fan base than some of the clubs at this level, so...
Well, your stadium is more like to fill up. then some others. Like, naming no names. But, you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Unfortunately, I do know what you mean. But
It's a hard one. It is, like, pricing football games. I don't know, as a man, as I say, as someone who's paid £12 to watch non-league football, I think we do overprice a bit.
I'd say so. I would
in this
say.
But is there a reason for that? Is there a deeper-seated reason, such as are we too crowded as a country, so football is more competitive, so they do need more money from the ticket gates?
I think they are juicing us a little bit. You know, they are milking the cow until the milk runs dry. If you want to use a slightly disturbing analogy, which I do. So I would say, as much as yes, they've got to make some money, they've got to be careful, because otherwise they'll drive the fans away.
Like, if the wage cap ever comes in, I think things might change, but we both know that's never going to happen. So we have to suck it. Well, not in this league. It does happen in other leagues, like the MLS. Another reason why the MLS is an interesting league, there is a wage budget that everyone has to stick to.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. Like, the way they keep it fair. Ish. But, I was going to say, there are ways around it which they have been exploited, but it's tough. It's tough to find the missing factor behind why ticket prices are weird in our country compared to others, and by weird I mean more expensive, like, on the football fan.
Yeah.
And finding that missing factor, it's not something we've just experienced recently. It's something that certain teams have experienced recently. Liverpool lost Luis Suarez in the summer, and ever since then, there's been that missing X factor in their team.
Yeah.
In my estimation, I think you'll agree with me on this, but a lot of it boils down to the fact that A, they've not replaced him, and B, they've not spent what they got from him well. Your thoughts?
I mean, Balotelli was always going to be a gamble, wasn't he? 16 million is a decent price these days for that kind of player. I mean, obviously back in the day that would have got you Alan Shearer and enough money left over for Neil Poynton, probably. Not that you've wanted him, but
you got your Andy Cole, and Andy Cole was good. Put it that way.
It would have got you 2 Andy Coles. I think he was about 8 million when he went the first time. But I would, I mean, the problem is with Balotelli, I can't really just slot into a team, which is what I think they needed. They need another striker that they'd just slot into the team, like Lambert.
And if you look in the press, the way Rodgers talks about Balotelli, I don't think Rodgers is the right manager for Balotelli, if you know what I mean. I think Balotelli's worked well under certain managers, because certain managers know what to say to him and how to get the best out of him. There are certain people in certain walks of life, and we've probably met them at work, in our jobs. Whatever you do, listeners, you've met them. The boss treats them a little bit differently. They get results, but not in the way that you would expect, so they have to kind of go a little bit off book in the way that they handle them, the way they talk to them, what they do with them, what they actually do for the company. And I think Balotelli mentally is that person. Whether you get the results that person needs to get to justify being that person is down to how he's initially handled. I think he was handled well at AC Milan. I think he did wonders for them. He's loved over there. What he did for Inter was brilliant, but then he was younger and he was fresh on the scene, so people didn't really know how to combat him so much. Which is why I think Joe has slowed down a bit in the Premier League, as an aside. But if you don't get that bit right, you won't justify his price tag. And I don't think Rodgers has got that right thus far, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, one thing I would say is that AC Milan, they loved him when he was scoring goals, but they didn't love him when things all went a bit bad for him and they were down near the bottom, well, the middle of the league, which is not great for them. Yeah, I think there was a perceived lack of effort there, but I mean, he did score some crackers for him. And the problem with Balotelli is, if you look at the managers he's worked with, Mourinho, Seedorf, Mancini, and now Rodgers, these are some big names. And all of them have at times...
Big names.
Well...
Rodgers is at a big club that hasn't yet proved himself at that level. Seedorf is a former player that just took the helm. That's like calling Ryan Giggs a big managerial name. It's not really applicable.
Well, alright, but I mean, like, in terms of...
The point's still valid, but
yeah.
not...
Yeah, but I mean, he's had a succession of managers try to take care of him and try to get the best out of him, and they've all struggled to a certain extent. So he was never going to be, for me, he was never going to be another piece in the jigsaw. He was going to be probably as much of a hindrance as a help. And it also brings me on to a point about Lallana. Lallana is a very good player, but he doesn't really play in Liverpool's way, which we saw a lot of last season, which is, they move the ball so quickly, get it to their quick players like Sturridge and Sterling who can, destroy you in the first 15 minutes. Lallana's more of a playmaker, more of a, he plays it around a bit. He's more of a traditional, more of an old-fashioned English passer. So he...
Letitia was.
Yeah. I mean, obviously not exactly the same as him, as he doesn't possess the same dribbling skills, but I mean, he probably... I'm not sure if Liverpool's going to be a great fit for him. He hasn't started terribly, but he also hasn't started that well. So, I mean, obviously I hope he does well. He's an English player, and, he's looked very, very, very good over the last 2 seasons in general. But, yeah, I'm just not sure if it's a great fit for him. A bit like, say, if you dropped, I don't know, maybe someone like Kevin Davis of, say, like 8 years ago in a Chelsea squad, it just wouldn't quite fit their style of play.
See, with that, but he was looked at by Scolaris, don't forget. So.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, you couldn't imagine him.
Oh, I get you. It would have worked. It would have worked in the same way that he would have been a very diluted Drogba in terms of he could have done one of the aspects well, but not all of them.
Yeah, a bit like when Dave...
But I accept that he didn't have the toolkit.
Yeah.
Chelsea.
He wasn't the complete footballer, but he did what he did well.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a bit like when David Hurst went to Spurs, and that all just turned out a bit odd. Spurs like to think themselves as a footballers team, and to be fair, they've always been known to their midfielders. So having a big lump of a striker up front was always an odd one. So yeah, I'm just worried about how Lallana's going to fit into all of that.
With Lallana, and it sort of links into my second point, do you think they spent the money they got for Suarez well at all, yes or no?
They could have made worse signings, but they could have made a lot better. That's my short answer to that.
I think that's in the wrong area, is my short answer. Their back line needs a lot of work. I think. A lot.
Yeah, Lovren was a bit of a gamble. Skirtle's a good player, but how much he's got left in the tank? And they let Aguero go back to Denmark for not very much at all. I mean, it was a slightly odd situation, but yeah, they are very frail at the back.
You're not going to get much from a Danish club. And if he wants to go home, you can't stop him.
Yeah.
I mean, the only exception, the case I think where someone has been stopped successfully, at least for a bit, is Colaccini at Newcastle.
Yeah, and he's not even Danish. So, even though they did try and pay him in krona. But I understand what you mean. It is difficult because you've got to have the player's mind as well as his body. Early
point of winning mentality.
Yeah, commentary found that out when we got relegated. We had Magnus Hedman in goal. He just wasn't bothered anymore, so he was shipped out pretty quickly because although he's still a good keeper, he just didn't want to be there anymore. Agger, I don't think it was the fact that he didn't want to be at Liverpool. I think it was more the fact he wanted to be at Bromby and he wanted to help them out. They were his first club, they were his favourite club.
He did a
the opportunity came along.
Essentially, he's done a Bellamy. He honoured his promise and went home.
Yeah. So.
And very footballers do that. So.
Yeah, and to do that relatively early in his career as well, because I mean, a lot of players do it, saying like when they're 36 and they're just about to retire. So he did it while he's still got some time left in him. So fair play to him.
Of course, there might have been some other personal factors which weren't disclosed. We do have to, factor that in.
Yeah. But where else do you think they've spent badly? I mean, is it more? What were you saying, that maybe they should have bought somebody else instead, or the players they've bought haven't been good enough?
It's a mixture of them not getting the value of the player that they bought, if you know what I mean. I think they overspent on one or two of them. And I think it was in the wrong area. They did need to replace Agger. They didn't. They brought Lovren in, who is fine, but he's not Agger.
Yeah, he's not the same player yet. He's not going to be for a year or two, I'd say.
He's not an Agger now.
Yeah, that's what they need.
He's not ready-made. When you lose someone that integral, and you bring in a grower, like a development prospect, you do need a plan B. You need someone who can do it. Not necessarily someone that's good that knows. They've got Colo. They've got Colo.
Colo, I'd say, is past his best, and his best wasn't,
His best was good, but his best was a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's like 1 or 2 years off the boil. I think he's a fair few years off the boil, in all brutal honesty.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why he's been let go by some clubs in the past. Because he used to be a very big player, but I mean, after Man City let him go, I think it just sort of showed, and some of his performances in the World Cup kind of just underlined that. So.
Well, there was a massive factor in that one, though. The death of a family member will do that to you.
Yeah, but I mean,
I take your point about the whole overarching thing, but I think the World Cup one, we've got to let a little bit of slack there.
Mm-hmm. Nice guy as well, by the way. Donated over $2,000 to the Danish homeless football team, so they could play in the homeless World Cup in Chile. Oh yeah,
like the Tories, typically, like they're charitable folk.
Oh, sorry, I meant Agger. But no, I think the Tories are pretty good when it comes to.
They do a bit in their country.
I was going to say in Ivory Coast, yeah, they know where they came from. But yeah, Agger also as well. We should have said as well. Not only did he move quite cheaply, so it didn't cost Bromby very much. He took a big pay cut as well. So fair play to him for that.
And I don't know if this is 100% verified, but if we're looking at charitable gestures, we have, I was always talking about Liverpool, we have got to mention, obviously after the Manchester Dogs Home fire, there was a strong rumour that Balotelli donated a large amount to make sure that they were all right. So, if that is true, then he's not a bad human being.
He's not. He's just got the brain of a child sometimes. But
he needs a little leash occasionally, but people like that you've got to let free sometimes. Like when Usain Bolt was talking about his run in Beijing when he broke the record the first time, and everyone was like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Because like the athletics world knew him, but the casuals didn't. And of course, at the Olympics, that's when the casuals see athletics. And there's the bit where we were talking about, because obviously he gets about 80 metres in, and rather than aerodynamic, dip your head, his arms are out, and he's like pumping the crowd up. And an interviewer asked him, like, why were you doing that? You could have got even a faster time. And he just turned around and went, I wanted to fly. there are those who still, despite the fact that in a footballer's, that their job, in big capital letters, job is a footballer, they still treat it as a game.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, we analyse over it. I mean, you and me, professionals analyse over it. Prozone, there's massive search engines, there's data banks where people are watching like Malaysian second league football and counting the number of passes and interceptions. And it's a big industry, and it is now an industry. We do have to accept this. But at its core, at its spirit, it's still a game. And I think Mario just treats it as a game too much for someone. That's for a modern professional footballer, in some people's eyes, perhaps.
That's probably one of the best points you've raised on Mid-Table Crisis there, Simon. So, yeah, I'd agree. The problem is for Liverpool fans that
he's doing it for them.
Yeah. I mean, you really want to have a professional footballer having a more professional outlook. If you're going to win the league, but to be honest, as I've said before, I think their time was last year. I think Skirtle got older, Tory got older.
Not, yeah. I hope they'll realise that soon enough. But it's not this year for them. See what they do in the summer. See what they do in January. That's the telling factor.
Yeah.
That back line, reinforce it. Replace Suarez properly, you'll have a chance.
To be honest, I'm not sure how much of a chance they're going to have anyway. But I don't know. I'd say they're probably going to be in and around the top 4 over the next few years. But yeah, they really do need to buy well in January and next summer as well.
I'd say more next summer. January's a crapshoot anyway in transfer windows.
Yeah, but I mean, one good signing, and that could really give a big boost to the end of the season.
Good signing in January. It's a bloody nightmare.
Yeah.
That's just speaking for me as an FM manager, and that's just watching as a fan. Try and get someone good in January. It's a bloody job.
I understand what you mean. But yeah, I mean, going on from that, when it comes to Liverpool, good luck to them. They're going to need all the help they can get. And looking back at Liverpool over the years, they once had a couple of left-footed strikers, many years ago, coming through the ranks in their teens. One was a short guy with a nice finish. He was in the early England squads, the under 18s. One was a big black Nigerian. I'm not sure if he emigrated from Nigeria or his family did before he was born. But he decided that the presence of this one young Robbie Fowler meant that it would be best if he plied his trade elsewhere, and he of course went to Crewe. That lovely man is Dele Adebola, who has been in the news quite a bit recently, hasn't he?
Well, he's in the news for another reason now, because he's a forgotten footballer, in Tom's seamless segue. He's been in the news because of his surname, bless him, more than anything else. He's not so much a forgotten footballer as more of a remembered footballer, and we're sort of inverting it a little bit. But we want to look into more the man behind the headline that we're getting recently. Of course, the headlines, for those who haven't quite caught up, is that he's got a lot of tweets recently asking him if he's had Ebola, purely because of his name. Which obviously brought a lot of attention to his social media account, which then proved a bit of a double-edged sword with what he posted recently by accident on Twitter. If you'd care to elaborate on one of Coventry's own there, Tom.
Well, obviously he's made a bit of a mistake. It wasn't a great... it's not been a great week for him anyway, but yeah, when he accidentally... I don't know what he thought he was doing. He accidentally tweeted a link to Pornhub's BBW category, which... I
think he must have been trying to DM someone. That's the only thing I can think he must have been doing.
Possibly. He is quite new to it.
He might have put the shed by accident. It's like we're only speculating, but it's one of those two, I think.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not surprised. How embarrassing. I mean, I don't know if he's married. But
one of some secret tweets was, "I am so embarrassed. Can anyone teach me how to delete tweets, please?" So, obviously, I don't know if he was told to say that, but if it's genuine, proves he's new to the medium. So we do have to cut him a little bit of slack.
Yeah.
But of course, obviously, it's been a rough week for him, and we have, of course, started by highlighting what our fans would have already been drawn to by what he's been doing. But we should really look at the man behind the headlines. I mean, obviously, he was a former Coventry player, so we should really explore his career from, if nothing else.
Yeah. As I say, started off at Liverpool, but he realised that it was going to be difficult to be a left-footed striker. Difficult to be a striker breaking into that team anyway, but especially a left-footed striker at the same time as as Robbie Fowler, who's about the same age. So he basically decided to try and ply his trade elsewhere, and ended up at Crewe, where he did very well. So he's you can see straight from the start that he's a man to leave a club like Liverpool for Crewe, sort of his own accord more than he wasn't. It wasn't like they didn't offer him a contract.
Well, they did offer him a contract, but he just realised that he couldn't compete.
Yeah, which is fair enough.
Like, without trying to be rude there. So
yeah. Maybe no, but I think young players should do that. Look, Jose Baxter, who left Everton and went to Oldham in a similar story. Merseyside to Muff Dive. So I mean, you've got to admire that, and he did pretty well at Crewe. I mean, considering he was a young player at the time, by the time he left, I think it was about 22, 23. He'd scored 39 goals for him in the league in 123 games. That included a few loan moves as well. He did well for Bangor City and Northwich Victoria, scoring about 1 and 2 for both of them. So he's clearly
respectable record wherever he's gone throughout his career. You guys had a respectable record.
Yeah, and the thing is, you've got to realise as well, he's not an out-and-out striker. He's a big guy, but he was quite quick in his youth. So he was probably, I'm not sure if he favoured it or not, but he was often played of an attacking three on the left, or sometimes even on the left wing. So if you've got two main strikers, he would be a left winger, so he wouldn't even be a recognised striker quite often. So while his goal scoring record wasn't always brilliant, you've got to realise that he wasn't always there to score goals. He was out on the wing for his pace. So
and he was nearly picked up, but like his pace and his goal scoring record nearly got him like some caps for Northern Ireland, because he found one of their managers, Laurie McNamee. I can't say it. McNamee, I think.
Laurie McNamee.
That's the one.
Yeah.
He found out Adebola was an English, a British citizen that was born overseas and eligible to play for any of the home counties.
Yeah, Mike Taylor famously took up that. For Northern Ireland tend to be the one of the home nations that tend to go after these players. But yeah, Mike Taylor's a famous one. Born in Germany, went on to earn 88 caps for Northern Ireland. So yeah, I'm not surprised they're interested in him.
Well, they take what they can get. Some home nations, bless them.
Well, I think you'd have to. I know Nigel Quashie, I think, was eligible for Gambia, or I think it was Gambia or Ghana, but for some reason chose Scotland, and he did so well for him. But yeah, Big Dilly, I think he wanted to play for Nigeria more than anyone. But yeah, he was very unlucky when it came to international management. I mean, this is jumping ahead a little bit, But yeah, he wanted to play for. I think England was his first choice really, but he would have played for Northern Ireland or Nigeria if he'd have had the chance at various points. There was times where all three. Well, I think England had their eye on him as a prospect, but they were never really thinking that, give him a cap.
No,
Whereas,
interest quite quickly.
Yeah. Whereas with Nigeria and Northern Ireland, they both wanted him in the squad, and I think a couple of times he did say, he was very interested, but I think he was injured for a couple of games,
Injured, exactly. So he's just an unfortunate soul in that aspect, but he still has a good career, like a good club level career.
I mean, from after Crewe, he really got my radar. He signed for Birmingham City in '98, and it was sort of probably been about 2000 when I first really caught a glimpse of the beast of a man that he was. Because physically, he was not unlike Dion Dublin. Dion was a little bit more of a tank of a player, whereas Adebola was a little bit more pacey, I'd say, early on in his career. And, he seemed to be... he was an explosive player, a good impact player. The kind of player you want to bring on with 30 minutes to go with tiring defences. Very big, very strong, and very quick early on. One of the problems with him, I think, was he had a vicious strike in his left foot, but he wasn't the most accurate. And because of that, I think at Birmingham especially, he was played out wide and told to knock a cross in more often than play it into the box. So his goal scoring record there was okay, 30 in 131, which is not bad for a striker come winger. So respectable. And from there he moved on to Crystal Palace. He was only there for a year or so. Got 5 in 39. So again, relatively for an out-and-out striker that'd be fairly poor, but considering the kind of position he was played and the fact that he was moved around quite a bit, decent. But then of course he came to Coventry, which is where I got to see him in the flesh for the first few times. And I'm not sure, he must have played against Bolton a few times and some other teams. Have you ever seen him in the flesh? You ever had that pleasure?
I never saw him in the flesh. I remember seeing little clips of him and playing in a team named after him.
Wow.
Of course.
He's a good highlight reel player. He's the kind of player you might get on the goal of the month a few times, but at other times, he maybe wasn't quite so highly valued. I do know at Birmingham he was kept on the transfer list because the manager thought he was a bit too laid back, so they tried to sort of G him up a little bit, give him something to aim for. So he's, what I'd say is, he did have a certain kind of laid back attitude that made him perhaps not quite fulfill his potential, but he was still a very good player. But when I talk about seeing Dele Adebola in the flesh, I've got to talk about the Blackburn United game, Blackburn Rovers game. Not long after we'd beaten Manchester United 2-0, I went up there with a good friend of mine, James Kwiatkowski, and we saw the FA Cup. And we were in the Championship at the time, and I was sitting just behind the goal. And it was a mental game. We ended up winning 4-1. I think Misford got 2. There was a penalty. I can't remember who scored that. It was Elliot Ward. And David Bentley scored an absolute cracker to make it 3-1. But then with about 75 minutes gone, running towards our goal, big Pele Adebola, he took on, I'd say he probably took on one defender and then just smashed the second one to pieces. Was too quick for the third one, and then hammered the ball home from about 20 yards. One of the best goals I've ever seen live. And he admitted at the end, after the game, he said the reason he hit it from that distance was he was too tired to run any further, so he just hit it as hard as he could. But I mean, that is the kind of player Big Deli was. You know, a powerful player, a good technical player as well for a man of his size. But yeah, by the time getting towards the end of his commentary career, he had lost a bit of his stamina. Was beginning to lose a bit of his pace, but still effective. You know, still effective when he was in the mood. After that, his career, he became a little bit of a journeyman. You know, spent a bit of time on loan at Bradford City in 2004, and then ended up going to Bristol City in 2008. A couple of seasons there. Then he spent a couple of seasons at Nottingham Forest, which was also the same time I was in Nottingham, so that was good to see. You know, he only scored 5 times in 62 there, but there I think he was used as more of a out wide or a target man. You know, his job was to hold the ball up and bring other people into play much more than it was to score goals himself. You know, referenced by the fact that, you know, they had him for 2 years rather than just for 1. And then he moved to Hull City. So, you know, they clearly thought he could still do a job. And while he didn't score there, he did go on loan to Notts County and bang one in for them. And then he moved to Rochdale, continuing his travels, and he did actually pretty well there. He got 6 in 26, and bear in mind by this time he was probably
pretty gone.
He would have been, yeah, he was getting on in years, certainly. So it was good to, it was good to see that despite his age, he could still score a few goals. And of course, I mean, he would have been bringing other players into play. It would have been that stage in his career where he would have been one of the senior players looking to help out the team rather than just get all the goals for himself.
I mean, no, he's as I say, he's sort of petered out now. The last we heard of him, he was at Rushall Olympic.
I wouldn't say he's petered out just yet. He did score a lovely goal for them, and I think one of his first few games. He's and he's still playing for the love of the game more than anything. You know, he's 39 now and he's still playing locally, and that's just because he wants to, not because of the money. I mean, there's no money down that level, but he's doing it because he wants to. You know, he still enjoys it, and he can still do it, and he just enjoys playing the game. So
that's the cool thing about him. He's a footballer that loves the game, which is what you want. And I think if anything we've proven from the last few minutes is that he was far more than just a funny surname related to like the disease of the day and an unfortunate tweet.
Obviously, I could have told you that. I mean, I was of course captain of Teddy Adebola's Bad Boys, who was a marginally.
I have on occasion as well, so that's one of the teams we've played together in.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few. There's been a few name changes as well over the years, but I mean that was what higher tribute could he ask for?
Exactly. And on that respectful note, I'm sure when he listens to this and finds out that we've played in Team Named after him, he'll be touched to his core. On that respectful note, we should really say thank you, Dele. You gave us a great name, great time, and obviously a great topic to talk about.
Yeah, and thank you for letting us touch your core, and thanks for sending those dirty links as well. We made good use of them.
Twitter works, Dele, for God's sakes.
Yeah, just come on, mate, sort it out. Come on, Big Deli. We all know what you're about. Now we know. Now we know. Now we know what who the real father of Kate Middleton's second child is. But it's good to see that he's still going strong and still doing well. If you do want to find out more, go on the BBC Football website, and there is a good article relating to Adebola still playing for Rushall Olympic, even at this later stage in his career. So have a look through that. We'll put it up on the Facebook site. But yeah, I think that's a good place to end our lovely podcast this evening. On a high note. So yeah, don't worry about Ebola. Don't worry about Adebola. Just listen to the football ramble. Oh God.
The football ramble is good, but I'd rather you'd listen to Mid-Table Crisis as well.
Yep, I would like that too. Alright, so thank you very much for listening, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Mid-Table Crisis with me, Tom Patrick.
And me, Simon Cross. And also, you'll be pleased to know this, is that soon I'll be starting a secondary podcast, as yet untitled. We're juggling our names at the moment, but I'm plugging that. I'm plugging Mid-Table Crisis on that. So I'm going to plug that on this, and I'll be talking about the wrestling world as well, so keep your eye out for that too. I'm expanding, Tom.
I can tell you're expanding. To be honest, I really don't want to see that kind of thing on my Skype, but go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't know, that horrific image seared into your minds, forever listeners. I'd say have a good night and God bless.
Have a lovely night. Take care. Bye-bye.